Kamal Srikumar, president at Srikumar Global Strategies. Sri, great to see you.
Good to be here, Melissa.
So you actually think the first cut could happen in the April-May meeting, but it's not because inflation is going down, it's because of commercial real estate?
Exactly. I have been talking on the show, Melissa, about a credit event shock that is coming. I had put out 3-4 different factors, but now increasingly it seems to be coming from the financial sector, the banking sector. And even Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, who until recently has repeatedly claimed that the banking system is sound, has given way to talking about her concern about commercial real estate. Yesterday, she told the Senate Banking Committee she is very worried about non-bank mortgage lenders. So you have, I think, what I call a CRE tsunami that is coming. The timing, you may disagree. You may say it's not 2 months, it's 4 months, but somewhere in the first half of the year.
Or David, what's the very latest?
Yeah, Kiko. So the new chairman is trying to he's purchased more stock, and he's of course the previous CEO of Flagstar, which NYCB acquired in late 2022. And he said on an investor call earlier this week that their main priority right now is to shore up confidence with the street. And that makes a lot of sense because they're in a tough position. A lot of their loan exposure is in commercial real estate, particularly in multifamily, which we don't hear about quite as much. It's specifically in multifamily in New York City, rent-controlled apartment complexes or loans tied to those properties. And so that's been difficult given a 2019 law, which has effectively capped the pace at which landlords can hike the rates of those apartments. Now, that was a long time ago, but given the combination of interest rates, landlords are losing their incentives essentially to renovate these properties. And so they're becoming more and more vacant, and they're also deteriorating in value a little bit faster than would be expected. Signature Bank also had a high exposure to these properties. And just to go back a little bit further,
you seem confident in the banks, and yet the Silicon Valley Bank, second largest failure in U.S. history. Did the Fed miss that?
So, yes, we did.
And go back to New York Community Bank Corp, as we've been tracking that throughout this week. It's on shaky ground as it attempts to reassure investors of its deposits, liquidity, and governance. Now, this comes after the regional bank suffered a week-long plunge in its stock, plus a credit downgrade from Moody's. The turmoil stoking concerns about the industry's vulnerability to commercial real estate troubles. Here to discuss where this leaves the banking sector at large, we've got Sheila Bair, who is the former chair of the FDIC and author of children financial literacy books, Daisy Bubble and Money Wizards. Ooh, personal favorite there. Sheila, thanks so much for taking the time here on the day. First and foremost, I think a lot of people who have been tracking shares of NYCB are just wondering, is this a canary in the coal mine or something larger for the CRE market?
Yeah, so we've known commercial real estate was going to be a problem, is a problem, and it's going to be a worsening problem. So yeah, it's going to, a lot of banks are going to, that have heavy exposures to certain categories of commercial real estate. It's important to understand that's a big group. We're really talking about urban office, some urban retail, and some multifamily. Most multifamily housing, which is included in the commercial real estate definition, is actually, that's a good place to be. But in certain pockets, and particularly New York, where you have some pretty restrictive rent control laws, you're seeing some distress. So I think it's important to not, taint the entire sector, but yet within those segments, CRE is a problem.
It's really great to have you with us to explain this all to us. As I look at it from the outside, it looks like there's not a lot of transactions going on. The measurements I've seen shows that it's actually down as a matter of total value. At the same time, there's a huge pent-up demand for refinancing. Is that an accurate portrayal, and what's going to give?
That is completely accurate, as when you have rising interest rates and a dislocation, we could debate how big this dislocation is or is going to be, but you generally have reduced transaction volume because this is a buyer's market. And so really, you don't have a tremendous number of sellers other than sort of forced by distress or duress. And so you see transaction volume down. certainly refinancing, the desire for refinancing is massive, and liquidity constraints are very evident in the market today. And I think we could talk about the regional banking dynamic, where that seems to be sort of quiet for the moment. But I think that while it's quiet, I certainly don't think we're out of the woods from a liquidity perspective with respect to regional banks and liquidity dynamics. I personally think the soft landing was 2023, and that 2024 and 2025 are going to be the hard landing.
The commercial real estate sector has faced its share of challenges, especially within the office space. And our next guest says those challenges, particularly that the U.S. is facing, aren't going to go away this year. For more, let's bring in Mintz. He's managing partner at Steady Capital, a private equity firm that invests in U.S. commercial real estate. Mint, thanks so much for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, yeah, what are you seeing big picture-wise right now?
Thematically, if we were to compare 2023 to 2024, I'd say we're doing better. If we were falling out of the sky last year, I think this year we see the ground coming at us at a very fast rate. But overall, I think now that we see the problems in the market and people are understanding what the real risks are and the issues, I think everyone's working toward a solution. And so in that respect, it's looking a little bit better, but there's still going to be a lot of turbulence, particularly with big balance sheet banks having to work out these issues with office loans and various non-performing loans.
Okay, so the clarity that you're experiencing, that the industry is experiencing, what problems are the biggest right now? What are the solutions that you're saying that are coming to light?
And so I think the biggest issue has constantly been the capital structure issue, not necessarily the performance of the vast majority of commercial real estate asset classes. Office being kind of the biggest pain and where the most pain is being felt. And so people are now understanding. I see, apartment buildings are being let. Rents are stabilizing. Some markets rents are going down where there's too much supply. Some markets that are tight, rents are going up. And so these are all signs of a healthy, functioning real estate market. And so a lot of it's boiled down to, well, if you borrowed at 3% and you're facing a refinancing at 6% and your mortgage costs are doubling, there's something that needs to be addressed. And these are the big issues kind of remaining on bank balance sheets.
So when you're thinking about big buildings and big mortgages, for in the commercial space, how does that, what are some of the implications from that? Are you seeing a lot of owners of property trying to get rid of what they're holding, passing it on, or what are you seeing?
Well, in the U.S., we have a lot of non-recourse borrowing, which means you're not, guaranteed to pay the loan back. And so a variety of players and blue chip players as well, if the loan balance is so, out of valuation with what you can refinance the debt with, even players like Blackstone and Brookfield have given up buildings. They've just given the keys back and said, I'm done. But at the same time, if there's some value to be found in between, what everyone could do is get together. They'll do loan modifications. A lot of banks have modified their loans to extend them a little out. More of these workouts that are being done need to continually be executed on for the next 2 years. There's still $1 trillion of commercial real estate debt maturing in the next 18 months. And so about $500 billion of that last year was kicked to this year. And so we have these issues. We're working on them. Now, will most of that be refinanced? Probably not, but there'll be haircuts. And I think banks have a playbook now. They spent a lot of last year figuring out what to do. This year is all about execution. The Federal Reserve in the US and the FDIC, which regulates and provides guidance to these banks, they're trying to figure out creative ways to help them restructure these loans as well.